secrets to bringing order and organization to our lives. Before we get started, remember to visit virtualjcc.com and register to access all of our interactive live and on-demand content. If you're anything like me, after being cooped up for weeks on end, you're eyeing your home critically and seeing clutter in places you have never seen clutter before. Our guest today will share pro-organizational tips to inspire us to turn chaos to order and make our lives easier overall. It is my pleasure to welcome Terry Swaye from Sensible Space. Hey,
Hi.
Terry. How's it
Hi, how are
going?
you? Good, you?
I'm well, thank you. It's nice to see you.
Good.
Thank you for being with us today. And on a personal note, I'm very excited because I'm obsessed with getting rid of things that I don't need. So you are the person that I would like to speak with today. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, how you came to be the owner of Sensible Space?
Sure. It was actually my husband went to, he was at his old office, and there was somebody in his boss's office, and she was decluttering and she was organizing it. And he said to her, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm just helping organize this office." And he said, "That's what my wife needs to do. I've always done this. I've always walked around the house. I've always been organized." And that's how the whole process started. And then I did some research, and I went from there.
That's fantastic. And I do think that some people are kind of naturally born organizers, but the great thing about it is that I think it's a skill that everybody can learn, and I'm sure you would agree. So if you are naturally messy, don't despair. Terry is here to help you. Okay, so before we get into specifics, can you tell us a little bit about your overall philosophy on decluttering and why you feel it's important to keep our living space orderly and tidy?
I always say simplifying your home or your space simplifies your mind. The more clutter there is in front of you, the more clutter there is in your mind. And it just makes life a lot easier. And it's also more cost efficient.
That's
People are
so
spending way more money than they need to if there's too much clutter.
That's a good point because sometimes you don't actually know what you have in the house when you have too much stuff, and you'll go out and buy something that you already own, not realizing that it's sitting in the back of a closet somewhere.
Exactly.
Yes. And I also know for me, I can't relax and just watch Netflix. If there's like dishes in the sink and stuff all over the floor, it puts me in a mentally calm headspace for me when my surroundings are tidy. Um,
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with where to start. Even though a lot of us have more time on our hands than we might have before to tidy our homes and to get our lives in order, a lot of people find it to be very overwhelming and don't even know where to begin. So how do you recommend people figure out what to tackle first?
The first thing to do is you either figure out what room you're in the most or what room upsets you the most and that you want to work on. And you only focus at the beginning, one room at a time. And don't say, okay, I'm going to do this and run to this room, one room at a time. And that way you're focused on just that room.
I love the idea of starting with what upsets you the most because I think we all have that spot in the house that we walk past, and when we see it, we're just like, oh, you make me crazy. So if you could just tackle that one thing and see that it makes you feel good, then maybe it'll inspire you to go on and do more.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk junk drawers. They are notorious. Everybody has them. They are drawers filled with rubber bands, batteries, paper clips, everything that we don't know what to do with. What is your expert recommendation for organizing odd items that don't seem to fit elsewhere?
So what I always do is I have a process, my decluttering process. And what you would do is you would take everything out of the drawer. If it's near a countertop, put it on the countertop, take everything out. Then what you do is you put it into the categories likes with likes. For instance, all your pens together, all your paper clips together, your papers together. Once those are in the category, then you go through it. Make sure your pens are working. Make sure there's markers and markers are working. Just make sure everything is workable and usable. Then you have to decide on space, what you really need and what you don't need. Then once the categories have been organized, I have like little, you have to put little bins and little items like these in your drawers with the categories in them. So for instance, this one has pens in it. This one has earphones in it. So it's just very important to just put that category into a little clear bin, a white bin. There's so many different cupboard, like drawer organizers that you can buy and keep them in there. If it's overflowing, you have too many.
Yes, and I also like that the ones that you have are clear because then you can actually see what you have in them. So that's a
Yes,
plus. And the steps that you just broke down for us are simple and anybody can do it, even a toddler. So I think, like, again, people get overwhelmed by just looking at the mess. But if you do break it down into those simple steps, then it won't feel as scary.
yes.
Okay, so you touched on the idea of what we actually need and what we should keep. So many people have emotional attachments to belongings that don't necessarily serve a purpose in their day-to-day lives. And I'm sure you encounter this often in your work, and I'm sure there's a certain reluctance on many people's part to part with these things. So what is your personal philosophy when it comes to sentimental items?
Well, a lot of people do want to hang on to them. I don't have a problem with it as long as you have a home for them. So if you've got a lot of memories and they're all over the home, make a memories box, put them together. You can even subcategorize it, pictures in one of them, jewelry in something, whatever the subcategories are. And then you can keep it that way in a memory box. And if you are even questioning it and if you don't want it, don't keep it.
For sure. I have a sentimental box, and my kind of rule is like once it's full, it might be time to get rid of some stuff. Also, I feel like now with technology, you can scan pictures, you can take photos of things, you can make recordings. So there are
Exactly.
ways to like make some of your memories digital and not have them taking up precious space in your home.
Exactly. There's less clutter.
For sure. Okay, so not everybody has the luxury of a house with multiple floors, a basement, a garage. So when it comes to people who are living in smaller spaces like apartments, sometimes a one bedroom, what are your tips specifically for them? And also when it comes to storing winter or seasonal items that are larger and that they just really don't have space for?
So, for instance, if you're in an apartment building, usually there's a storage locker. So, two ideas I have is with a client of mine, or a lot of them, check underneath if there's room under your beds. You can buy clear, thin, long bins. You can put off seasonal clothes in there, have them labeled, and you can store them under your bed. If you have a top shelf that you're not using, put it on a top shelf. It's out of the way. Wrong season, it doesn't have to be visual. If you have room in your storage in the basement or in your apartment building, you can also store it there. Again, make sure everything is, I like clear bins, you don't have to. Please make sure that they're all labeled, what season and what they are.
Yeah, I think those are really good tips. And I think sometimes people just don't even think about looking outside their home for different solutions or for creative solutions in their home. So I think that it's good to get the gears turning in terms of like that there are places you can put things that you might not have noticed before.
Right.
Okay, so another notorious problem area is garages, and I'm sure you have been hired to tackle more than one garage in your line of work. Can you give us some general tips on how to keep our garages organized and looking clean?
So there's two different options. It depends, first of all, on your budget and what space you have and how much of the garage, what space you're using. Do you have two cars in your garage, less space? Do you have a one car? And what you would do is it depends on budget, like I said, and space. So space wise, if you have extra space, I always suggest that you can go to Canadian Tire. There's shelving units that you can buy. And again, use those shelving units with containers that are labeled and you put your categories in them. If you have overhead space, use those spaces. If you have a higher budget, you can always hire a garage company that can do a whole storage plan. Or what I love to do is usually in the back of the garage, there is space. You can do pegs and put pegs coming out and you can hang items there.
Yeah, I think any type of like wall shelving or hooks or anything that keeps stuff off the floor is good. And now you have just made me want to hire somebody to put a permanent shelving solution in my garage. So I'm adding
Yeah,
that to my wish list for the future because that sounds like it would be amazing.
that's why I always say it depends on budget.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so let's talk about kids. Kids have been home now for up to 2 months. I'm sure everybody's going a little stir crazy, and I'm sure parents are struggling with toys being strewn all over the house. Kids have to keep occupied and they need things to do during the day. Can you suggest a method for storing and organizing children's toys and bonus points if there's a way to involve kids in the process of cleaning and organizing their rooms and play spaces?
Right. So your kids are either in there's an area for the kids to play. The first thing you should do is whatever they have, I always suggest again to have a home for them, to have a place for them. So there is somewhere for it to go at the end of the day. Once you have accomplished that, then you make it a game. Age appropriate, you can do a game. You know, if there's a place for Barbies, there's a place for trucks, there's a place for crayons, and you have different forms of games. For instance, who's the fastest one who can clean up whatever is on the ground? You can do it by your favorite item. Put your favorite item away first. You can do it by colors. You can make a game out of it, but make sure it's done every day at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think consistency is really key, and I love the idea of making it fun. I always remembered from my childhood the big comfy couch, and they had the 10-second tidy, and I always loved that. That
Yeah.
stuck with me as an
Make it
adult.
into a game.
Definitely, it's the way to go. Okay, so once you've cleaned up, your drawers are tidy, you've put all your stuff aside, you have your pile of throwaway, and you have your pile of donate. But now most places are not accepting donations because of the pandemic. So what do you do with all the stuff that you've now put aside that you don't need anymore until donations are being accepted again?
So unfortunately, right now, that is going to take space up wherever you are at home. There's nothing we can do about it right now. But what you can do is, again, find a space you are not using and store it there for now, and just make sure it's labeled, whether it's a box or a bag, what's in it, where you want it to go. And then there's no, you just have to put it in a space that you're not using right now.
Yeah, and I mean, then at least when donations are able to be accepted again, then everything is ready to go, and all you have to do is pick it up and grab it. You're not looking at this massive project that you're starting from the ground
It's
up.
done and it's ready to go.
Yeah, for sure. These are all amazing tips. Okay, so do you have any final words for our viewers, tips, tricks that you think they should know, any tools that you think are excellent for organizing that people might not be familiar with?
A lot of it depends on, people get overwhelmed and they look at everything. I would always suggest to start small. You start in a room. If you have to start in a drawer, just start small. And then what you have to do is, like I said, the decluttering rules. What you do is you take, again, everything out, put it in its category. Do you keep it? Don't you keep it? It comes with clothes, drawers, everything. And then keep likes with likes. Again, you can use baskets, you can use bins, you can use so many different compartments in different drawers, cupboards. And then just like I said, keep likes with likes, colors with colors, and it will make it so much easier to maintain, and always maintain what you've done so it doesn't build up again.
Yes, and you will feel so good when you open your drawers and you see how tidy everything looks.
Yeah.
Okay, so Terry, if people want to connect with you to ask questions that may not have been answered today or to learn more about your services, how can they do that?
There's a few options. You can look on my website at www.sensiblespace.ca. There you go. It's on the bottom. Or Instagram, sensiblespace.ca. Ask me anything you want, and I would love for you to ask me, and I can hopefully answer all your questions.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm sure that you will be receiving some questions from our viewers. And I just want to thank you so much again for being with us today. I know I personally am off to tackle my junk drawer right now. So thank you for inspiring me. And I really enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Be well. Take good care.
Thank you too.
Thanks. Bye.